morning and welcome to Fox 29 News Now on this Monday morning. We're going to get started out of Newcastle County, where 3 teens are dead and a 6-year-old child is unaccounted for after a car plunged into a Middletown Township canal yesterday morning. Fox 29's Steve Keeley filed this report.
24 hours after this horrible accident happened, a second day of searching for the youngest victim, a 6-year-old little boy. The bodies of the 12 and 16-year-olds found still in this gray SUV. The oldest, the driver, 18 years old, found first nearby after initially getting out, helping the lone survivor, a 16-year-old girl, to safety, and then died going back in to try to save the others.
He was a hero. He tried to do everything he could to help the remaining passengers in that vehicle.
Family says the 5 were on their way to see yet another young family member play in a youth football game Sunday morning. Missed a turn, and the vehicle believed to have slid down this rock embankment, making a U-turn.
He made a wrong turn, and then something must have happened when he was turning around. They end up in the water.
We do not have any information as to why or how the vehicle ended up going into, over the canal banks into the water.
It's a whole lot. All those, they were all close, so it's a whole lot. But my sister and my niece, they're holding up. They're holding up, but it's not going to be easy.
And someone else also knew it wasn't going to be easy for the family. The first person that left this vase of flowers with this note. No words can express the pain that you are going through, and our prayer for you is that God will give you the strength to face the coming days ahead. We are very sorry for your loss. On the Chesapeake and Delaware Canal, Steve Keeley, Fox 29 News.
And more in local news overnight. A man has died and a woman is in critical condition after a double shooting in West Philadelphia. It happened just before midnight near Arch and North Robinson Streets. Police say a 38-year-old man and a 32-year-old woman were both shot in the face only a few blocks away from where the man lived. Both victims were rushed to the hospital, where the man succumbed to his injuries, and the woman, who has not been identified, remains in extremely critical condition. So far, no arrests have been made. Also in local news overnight, a man is dead after a shooting in the city's Juniata Park section. It happened just before 11 last night at a home on the 1300 block of Steinberg Street. Police found the 25-year-old victim in the first-floor living room near the door. They rushed him to Temple University Hospital, where he died a short time later. No arrests have been made at this time. And in Cumberland County, today marks 3 weeks since the 5-year-old Dulce Maria Alaves vanished from Bridgeton City Park, and still no signs of the 5-year-old. Police say Dulce was abducted from the park around 4 p.m. on September 16th while playing on the swings with her brother. Yesterday, dozens of volunteers returned to the park to help in the search. They spent hours looking in the woods around the park and along railroad tracks, but found nothing. Family, friends, and even strangers are not giving up hope just yet, though.
My heart's been breaking for this kid since it started. I feel terrible for the family. I can't even sleep. It bothers me. So whatever we can do.
I work a lot. I work 70 hours a week, but this is my day to rest, but I'm here.
Meanwhile, the reward for tips leading to Dulce's safe return home is now up to $40,000. If you know anything, the FBI wants to hear from you. And happening today, the trial begins for a man charged in the stabbing death of a real estate developer in Rittenhouse Square last summer. Prosecutors charged Michael White with third-degree murder and voluntary manslaughter. On Friday, District Attorney Larry Krasner filed a motion to drop the murder charge and add tampering with evidence and obstruction of justice. Investigators say White stabbed Sean Schellinger to death after an argument during a traffic jam. White then allegedly fled the scene and threw away the murder weapon. Also happening today in Bucks County, a former New Hope Solbury High School teacher accused of sexually abusing a student will appear in court for his preliminary hearing. Prosecutors say 41-year-old Kevin Elvey abused a 17-year-old student back in 2005. The alleged victim told police the acts took place at Elvey's Washington Crossing home multiple times. The district suspended Elvey in June as soon as they heard about the allegations. And in Philadelphia this weekend, 2 men are now behind bars after police say they killed a man and kidnapped 2 women during a home invasion. It happened Saturday night on the 2100 block of North 19th Street. Police say 2 armed men kicked in the door of a suspected drug house, tied up a 52-year-old man, and shot him in the back of the head, killing him. They then allegedly kidnapped 2 women and tried to break into a second suspected drug house on Diamond Street, shooting at a man who answered the door. The man was able to get away and flag down officers. The women were also able to free themselves. Police later apprehended the 2 men who fled down an alleyway, ages 28 and 31. They have yet to be identified. Also happening now, 2 Philadelphia schools are closed indefinitely after asbestos was found on their Spring Garden campus. The superintendent, Dr. William Height, hopes to have the nearly 1,000 students from Benjamin Franklin High School and Science Leadership Academy set up in a new building by Thursday. He says he understands parents' frustrations and apologizes.
Communication could have been much better and could have been more timely. It could always be better. But this is a unique set of circumstances, and we're just trying to navigate this as best we can.
Dr. Height says the school district should announce relocation plans by tomorrow. They say they are looking at several existing underutilized schools. And the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia held its 18th annual Buddy Walk and Family Fun Day on Villanova's football field yesterday. The event benefits the Trisomy 21 program at CHOP. That's the technical term for Down syndrome. The fundraiser helps keep the Down syndrome program running throughout the year.
We're very touched and we're very humbled. It's a really special day, yeah, for a special community.
The Trisomy 21 program at CHOP helps support breakthrough care and brighter futures for both kids and adults with Down syndrome. And in political news this morning, House Democrats are moving forward with their impeachment inquiry of President Donald Trump and probing his dealings with Ukraine, which may have fresh information to work with after a second whistleblower stepped forward with what the whistleblower's lawyer said was firsthand knowledge of key events. Fox's Doug Luzader has the story this morning from Washington.
Well, you've heard about this over the weekend. A second whistleblower has emerged who may provide Democrats with more ammunition in their drive to impeach the president.
But the president is fighting back. So let's get to Doug.
Hey, Doug.
Good morning, guys. We don't know exactly what this second whistleblower is going to allege, but according to what we've heard at this point, the difference between the second whistleblower and the first one is that the second apparently has firsthand knowledge.
The second whistleblower may have actually listened in as President Trump leaned on the president of Ukraine to investigate the 2016 election and former Vice President Joe Biden. It drew a quick response from the White House. It doesn't matter how many people decide to call themselves whistleblowers about the same telephone call, a call the president already made public. It doesn't change the fact that he has done nothing wrong. That is, Democrats spent the weekend portraying their effort as serious and solemn.
This past 10 days has been painful for members of the House on both sides of the committee. Obviously, it's been quite painful for the Senate, even though Too many senators are quiet on this issue.
Oh my gosh, these guys are giddy over this. They're not painting over this, and it's not been the last 10 days, it's been 3 years. 3 years they've been trying to impeach this president.
Republican allies still backing the president. And a new report this morning that Energy Secretary Rick Perry may have been involved in an effort to pressure Ukraine to replace board members at the country's state gas company. He denies any wrongdoing. But today, at least, Congress may be consumed with the possible implications of a second whistleblower complaint.
Unless this second whistleblower is going to come forward and say that he or she personally listened to this phone call and that the transcript released by the White House was falsified, then this is all hype and this is meaningless.
Yeah, it really comes down to what this second whistleblower is prepared to say. Meantime, we're waiting for more evidence to emerge here as the Democrats press forward, and this battle is going to continue between the White House and Congress over access to documents and so forth. That's going to consume a lot of time around here. Mike and Alex.
That will be eating up your time too, Doug. We'll see you again tomorrow. Thank you very much. It's 7, well, I'm going to just call it 7:14.
And we are going to take you now to Washington, where the acting DHS secretary is making remarks. Stay with us.
Been not necessarily in their interest to get together with Republicans and fix the problem, because they can use the fact that it hasn't been fixed to keep hammering Republicans. So I think both sides are at fault. I think there's a place in the middle where there are good people that want to find genuine solutions to address these problems. Don't come at it from a race perspective. You know, want border security, but want to fix the asylum system, want to treat people in a humane way, want to fix the legal immigration system, and frankly, want to find a solution for all of the undocumented population. I've seen those members. I've talked to them. They exist. It's tough political dynamics right now on both sides.
You know, I think that the point that you made earlier, Casey, about about education and about people being incredibly uninformed, including legislators and many legislators, about the complexity of the immigration story and what it really means and why it is that we have the issues we have. I mean, for instance, with Central Americans, there's no other way to get here at this point than the asylum system. The asylum system was not set up for these kinds of numbers. There are lots of people in that flow that could, if there were a work visa system of some kind, qualify. Those kinds of questions. I agree. I mean, I think we would all agree. There's just a tremendous amount of ignorance about all those issues. But to some extent, the answer to that does reside in elections. I mean, ultimately, how do you change things in ways that creates what we would call, some kind of a center that can, in fact, come together, because we know that there has to be bipartisanship in order for there really to be progress on immigration. And so I'm going to take us to elections and the next election cycle, because from everything that we see right now, we're stuck. We're just paralyzed, and legislatively. And the only thing that can really shake that up is elections. So let's talk a little bit about the next round in 2020 and the degree to which immigration actually will or won't affect election outcomes. I mean, it's clearly an unsolved question. It's clearly something that both parties use in one way or another, but are not prepared to yet give up in terms of making compromises. But that doesn't mean that they're going to be prepared to give it up, even though everybody knows this needs to be fixed. So, Lomi, talk to us about the border states in the first place, and particularly about Texas. Texas is one of those states that people are talking about possibly could turn purple. Were Texas to become purple, were Texas to turn, that would entirely change the electoral map. And so here you have this issue that is so pressing along the border. How do you see immigration playing in the Texas political picture, other border states, And, to what degree do you see this ferment around immigration actually translating into election outcomes?
Well, Texas, even for being such a Republican state, has also, for years, was really moderate, actually, on immigration. Under Governor Bush, under Governor Perry, was the first state to pass in-state tuition for undocumented immigrants. So it's really just in the past few election cycles that the rhetoric has really become more intense, the anti-immigrant rhetoric. And we saw that particularly last year in the Senate race with Ted Cruz and Beto O'Rourke, where it was a very tight race with immigration being really part of it. In fact, just days before the election, Senator Cruz accused O'Rourke of funneling money to the caravan. And it played up. I was at his election party, and the first chant that went up after his very, very narrow victory was 3%, the closest winning margin since 1990 in Texas. As soon as his victory was declared, the first chant that sort of began in the room was "Build that wall." So clearly that was very sort of part of what his base voters were excited about. But, and though he ultimately won, what you saw happening kind of down ballot in Texas, which was really a blue sweep, and also where O'Rourke ended up winning, which is every urban area in the state, and including sort of ex-urban areas that Republicans had won in the past. Many, including Senator Cruz's political advisor, found very indicative of what might come next year. We know that the share of Latinos and Asian Americans as Texas is becoming more diverse is increasing. And many say they are galvanized by this, the current sort of anti-immigrant rhetoric. And we saw that particularly kind of play out in Fort Bend County, which used to belong to Tom DeLay. It was a very Republican area, and now, it's still represented by a Republican, but who just announced he was going to not seek re-election, and it's considered a district that will very likely go Democrat. And also sort of down ballot races, voters elected an Indian immigrant as the county's top executive, which was not only the first time they voted for a Democrat in 3 decades, but Indian Americans in that county, which make up a big percentage, came out and voted Democrat in ways never seen before, and many of them are immigrants or the children of immigrants. And another thing that happened this year that I think will have a significant impact is the mass shooting in El Paso, in which the shooter, the gunman, spouted anti-immigrant rhetoric and invoking many of the terms like invasion that the president has used. And in fact, so has Governor Abbott, and Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick has used similar terms, which they've been criticized for. And many think it's having an impact. According to a Univision poll, almost 70% of Latinos in Texas said last month that race relations have deteriorated in the past 2 years. And 3/4 say their vote matters more in 2020 than in 2018. 69% they'll vote Democrat or are leaning to vote Democrat. So, I think that combined with just the increasing urbanization of the state, the increasing diversity of the state, will have an impact next year. 6 Republican congressmen have said they're not seeking re-election. 3 are in flippable districts. Republican Senator John Cornyn is going to face probably a tough re-election campaign, although likely will be victorious. And Democrats are also increasingly, there's a really good chance they might take back the State House, which would be a significant difference. So, I think it is having an impact.
Do you know enough about, what about the other border states? Arizona is another state, obviously, that is very much in flux. Do you have a sense whether you would say similar things about a state like Arizona?
I think we saw that last year when, there was an increase, and I'm sure Riley can talk more about it, a huge increase in the Latino voter turnout. We also saw that, which happened, Texas passed its own sanctuary city bill, but after Arizona, which first did that, the Latino voter share dramatically went up the election cycle after that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, I would just chime in and say, we can spend a lot of time taking the temperature or we can make the temperature. And, when I think about power building and when I think about electoral politics and civic engagement work, I mean, these things aren't going to happen just because there are more Latinos or more API potential voters. We've got to do a significant amount of infrastructure building in these states. It's very expensive operation to register people, to then turn them out, actually to persuade them to vote, right? And then to turn them out. And I think where I think the Democratic Party has failed, for example, I'll let others chime in on the Republican Party, is the Democratic Party sort of expects
And we are going to take you over now to Albuquerque, New Mexico, where an international hot air balloon festival is taking place. Stay with us. And that is going to do it for us today at Fox 29's News Now. Be sure to catch us again tomorrow at 10 a.m. and follow us at fox29.com as well as our mobile app and across social media. And thank you for joining us this morning.